Hello and welcome back to London Cycle Routes. Today I'll be showing you how to cycle from Putney in southwest London to Hammersmith in West London. This ride takes just 20 minutes and you can do the whole thing on quiet streets and protected cycle lanes with the help of the newly reopened Hammersmith Bridge. By public transport, the same journey takes more like half an hour and usually requires a change of tube line or a slightly longer bus, so cycling is a great way to make this trip. If you find this video useful or you just enjoy watching it, then please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as I try to post new videos just like it every week. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to everybody who supports the channel on Patreon. If you'd like to contribute too, then you can find a link in the description below the video. Alright, let's get going. So we're starting on Putney High Street and we're going to turn around straight into Lacey Road. This street is generally nice and quiet, but watch out for cars exiting the underground shopping centre car park on your left here. Once you're past these bollards though, Lacey Road is a great ride on a bicycle and a popular cycle route to get into central Putney, as you can see from the other people choosing to ride down here. For the first bit of our video today, we're going to pick our way through quiet streets in Putney to get to the riverside. A lot of the residential roads off the main high street are actually closed to through traffic, and we're going to try and stick to those today. The centrepiece of this route is the newly reopened Hammersmith Bridge, which is now bikes and pedestrians only and which looks absolutely fantastic. We'll see that later on. Now at the end of this street you might actually be better off crossing Felsham Road and then turning left down Henry Jackson Road, as it's a little bit quieter and more spacious than the route that I took here on Felsham Road, which as you can see is a bit of a squeeze. Henry Jackson Road, by the way, is named after Henry Jackson, who was the mayor and later MP for Wandsworth in the 1920s and 1930s. As you emerge from this passage, you can see from the blue shared space sign that you're allowed to cycle on the pavement briefly here to get to the Toucan crossing, which will get you to the other side of the street and down Bendemeer Road. From here, it should be a clear run to Putney Embankment by the River Thames. If you need a hint of which way to turn, there are actually little blue signs with bikes on them pointing the best way to the riverside. You can see one on a lamppost up here which points you right towards the river. The size of the path along Putney Embankment will actually depend on how high the tide is. Hopefully the owners of those cars down there aren't planning on leaving them there overnight, but however high the tide is, you should be fine cycling along here. There's no through traffic on the embankment, though there are some vehicles related to the boathouse and rowing club. This section of the embankment has a sealed surface which is perfectly good to ride on. The big downside of going this way though is that there is actually an unsurfaced section a little bit further up after we cross that bridge just ahead. The bridge actually goes over a stream called the Beverley Brook, which runs all the way through southwest London from its source in Worcester Park, a suburb you might be familiar with as a train station down the line from Waterloo. Unfortunately, the surface on this section of the Thames Path is really quite bad, though we're only going to be on it for a couple of minutes. I filmed these videos on a road bike with quite narrow tyres and I was able to get down it, but it wasn't exactly smooth and you can kind of see me sliding all over the place to try and avoid the very bumpiest bits. I think it would be really nice to surface this path properly with something reasonably rustic looking but still more accessible and smoother. There is a patch of rough concrete outside the boathouse which does offer a brief respite, but then it's very quickly back to rocks again. This can also get a little bit muddier in the winter, and there is of course also no lighting down here, so do be aware of that if you're planning to use this route as a commute to work. Historically, this was actually a towpath where barges could be pulled by horses or mules or whatever down the Thames, and now it's obviously more of a recreation spot where people come for a jog or maybe to ride a bike, as we're doing here. Don't forget to turn off left down Queen Elizabeth Walk when you see this blue sign here, which is pointing us down here. Fortunately, we get back to a nice paved surface here once we turn off the path, and it's much better. It's a little bit on the narrow side and it is shared with pedestrians, so do just make sure that you're courteous and you're not going to ride too quickly as you go down here. If you like, you can stay on the towpath actually all the way until you get to Hammersmith Bridge and then exit up a path to the road level when you get there. That is a bit more direct than the route in this video, and if you're enjoying riding down the riverside on a gravel bike or something, maybe that's the way for you to go. However, I'm actually trying to minimise my time on the gravel so that I don't get a puncture, and I don't really see the downside of going this way. It's arguably a little bit faster because there's a smooth surface, so what it lacks in directness it probably makes up for slightly in speed. As you'll see, it is a really nice way to go. First you leave the shared path here as soon as possible using that dropped curb, and then you continue on the carriageway down Queen Elizabeth Walk. This is a dead-end access road for the London Wetlands Centre, which is on our right, so the street has very little traffic on it. The Wetlands Centre, by the way, is a lovely way to spend a day if you're into wildlife and looking for something to do in southwest London that you can get to easily by bike. I've checked and there are bike parking spaces in the car park if you need to use them. We're now arriving at Barnes and you'll need to wait for a green light here to give you a clear right turn into Castleknow. Castleknow used to be a pretty horrible road to cycle on with lots of busy traffic. That was until Hammersmith Bridge closed to cars a few years ago, and since then Castleknow has become a great place to ride a bike because it's basically on a peninsula which is now a dead end for motor traffic, and as such is basically one huge low traffic neighbourhood with the only traffic you'll see buses and people accessing places in the peninsula. In this direction you can cycle in the bus lane, which I'd normally say wasn't good enough as cycle infrastructure, but given the low traffic levels I think is perfectly fine. And in the opposite direction you can see that there's a lightly segregated cycle lane protected by plastic wands. It's a little bit intermittent in front of the driveways, but again I'd say that for this low level of traffic it is perfectly fine, although it could perhaps do with being a foot or two wider just to make it more comfortable. If you were wondering about the weird name, Castleknow is named after the community of Castleknow in the south of France, and it bears that name because the 10th Baron Castleknow, a Huguenot refugee, fled France in 1691 for London and settled in the north of the Barnes Peninsula. His family, the Boileau family, developed the area, giving their name to Castleknow but also to nearby Boileau Road, which runs just to our left. You can also see from the blue and green signs that this road has recently been signed as a TfL official cycleway. It's Cycleway 57, and that makes sense I think, as it's a useful link and good to have on the official maps. Hammersmith Bridge closed to all traffic due to structural issues in 2019, and it's been open to pedestrians again since 2021. Cycling over the bridge has been on and off again since then, but it feels like now it'll be permanently open as a cycle link. If you've watched my other videos from when it was open to bikes before, I think the first thing you'll notice is that it just looks so much tidier and nicer. The surface is massively improved and pedestrians and cyclists are separated by a big curb in the middle of the track. Nobody has to be bothered by each other and it feels really nice to ride over. While the council's official position is that it wants the bridge to be open to cars again as soon as possible, it doesn't sound like this is going to happen anytime soon, and what they've built here does very much look like a permanent setup. It's a really nicely done piece of infrastructure that looks good and is really intuitive and safe to use, and I think the council has done a really good job with it, so fair play to them. While there are big downsides for bus services from the bridge being closed to motor traffic, from a cycle network perspective, it's really a huge improvement to be able to get over the river here without worrying about traffic. I know that there are other perspectives, and I'd be interested to hear what people think in the comments, but honestly, if it never reopened to cars, I would actually be very happy with the bridge being set up as it is now. One of the reasons the bridge is particularly valuable as a connection is due to network effects. Hammersmith and Fulham have done a good job building connecting cycle infrastructure in Hammersmith. So you have this Cycleway 9 here running segregated lanes which go west to Chiswick and beyond and east into Kensington. The Hammersmith Junction coming up here was also rebuilt for cycling by TfL and the council recently, and it's probably my favourite junction rebuild in London. There's no messing about, it just takes the cycleway straight across what used to be a massive barrier if you were on a bike, and the light timings are pretty good too, something that you can't say for a lot of other similar schemes. But there we go, we've made it from Putney to Hammersmith thanks to the newly reopened bridge. Don't take this route too literally. I appreciate that some people will want to go down the riverside all the way. Some people might feel fine going over Putney Bridge and going north of the river. Really, the point of it was to show off the new Hammersmith Bridge, and I'm eager to hear your thoughts as well. What do you make of the closure? Have you been over it? What do you think of it? And what would you like to see in the long term? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure you hit subscribe on the channel so my future videos find you on YouTube. I post new ones every week. And thanks once again to everyone on the Patreon for keeping the channel going. If you want to support it, there's a link in the description below the video where you can throw money at me. That's all for today. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week or in the comments. Goodbye.